dilated. Yeah. Worldwide. Gracie Veterano, old family first fam. Top the world.
Welcome to the third episode of the MMA Podcast. Today we got a lot of stuff to bring you. We got the breakdown for the UFC on FX 4 card, breakdown of the UFC 147 card. Going to be talking about Fedor Rizzo 2. It could be the last fight for a legend. We're also going to have awesome UFC featherweight Bart Palaszewski on in about an hour at 9 o'clock Eastern. Tons of news to bring you. Of course, Big Nog out of 149. Shogun refuting Dana's quotes about saying he won't fight Glover Teixeira. Maynard making Clay Guida braid back his hair for this weekend's fight. Let's do it, Chris.
Let's go. We did it, mama. We did it. We did it for the love of the game. We did it, mama. We did it. I did it for. We did it, mama. We did it. The game will never be the same. We did it, mama. We did it. I did it for.
And welcome to the third episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks to Bart Palaszewski for coming on. We'll have him on in about an hour. To our partners, MMA at Work, MMAmental.com, MMAplayground.com. Definitely call in if you'd like. The number is 646-378-1046. And we're always taking tweets. Tweet us now if you'd like. Tweet us during the interviews, and we'll ask them a question if we can fit them in. Our Twitter is at the MMA Podcast. And, of course, our website is themmapodcast.com. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing fantastic, man. It's another wonderful day in what is cloudy Southern California at the moment. But I'm looking forward to talking to Bart. And I got to say, man, that intro song has really grown on me. I get really pumped when I hear that thing.
Yeah, I was blown away when Eddie Bravo told us we could use it. And, yeah, I've loved that song since it came out. You didn't ask me how I was doing, so I'll just say it anyway, Chris. But I'm doing iffy. I had to call out of work today. I had a little bit of an upset stomach. I was eating a bunch of protein, so I got a real case of the protein shits. I'm dropping concrete blocks out of my butt, which I'm sure all of the listeners really want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a detail. It's a look into our lives, and the world is a better place knowing that you are struggling and going to defeat some bad shits.
Much better place. So, dude, this weekend is going to be awesome with MMA events. We have 2 UFC cards, Fedor Rizzo. Let's start with Friday's UFC card, which arguably is going to be better than the pay-per-view card, which I'm not sure how that exactly works out. But pretty much consensus, everyone's agreeing this UFC on FX 4 card's pretty great. It's headlined, obviously, by Gray Maynard versus Clay Guida. But we'll start off at the top of the main event, Ross Pearson fighting Cub Swanson. I was a big hater of Cub Swanson. I'll admit it. Since he got knocked out so devastatingly by Jose Aldo, I've questioned the guy's chin. You know, even though it was an amazing flying knee, he got knocked out in 8 seconds. But after that last knockout he had, I'm 1 foot on the Cub Swanson bandwagon, but I don't know if he'll be able to get past the Brit, Ross Pearson.
Yeah, it's one of these fights where both guys are just very well-rounded. I'd have to say that Pearson has a better track record of winning, but Swanson definitely impresses me a little bit more. He pushes the action. He goes for finishes a little bit more than Pearson does. But I think the big X factor in this fight is the fact that Pearson has strung together wins. He's looked impressive even against Barboza. He looked pretty good. And whereas Swanson he'll win a fight, lose a fight, win a fight, lose a fight. He lost to Aldo, won against Mackin Semazar, then lost to Ricardo Lamas by a choke in the second round, and then in his last fight knocked out George the Poop Roop with a killer right hand that bounced the mouthpiece off of the cage.
The Poop. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. That last fight against Roop, that awesome knockout in the second round, was the 7th straight fight where he's alternated win-loss, win-loss. He beat Takaya, lost to Aldo, beat Franchi, lost to Mendez, beat Mackins, I always mess up his last name. And Chris,
Semazir.
I know you are the master of pronunciations. Probably an average of 4 times a conversation talking about MMA. I'll fuck up a guy's last name and get corrected by the master of pronunciation. But hey, it's better than not knowing how to pronounce their names.
Would you call Miragliotta? You called him Mugagaki or Miragliotta?
I think I call him Miragliotta.
Oh, there we go. That's what it was.
Miragliotta. It sounds like a disease.
You're doing better, man. You're doing better. You're picking it up.
Stage 4 Miragliotta. And then he lost to Lamas, beat Roop. About 2, if this fight happened 1 or 2 years ago, I would say Ross Pearson for sure, UD. But Swanson has definitely improved in the last year or so. I would say a little bit more so than Pearson, which will make it a closer fight. But I still ultimately see Pearson taking the unanimous nod.
I'll take Swanson by a finish of some sort. I can't really put my finger on it. He's got a couple subs. He's got a couple knockouts. Ultimately, I just want to see the guy put together a streak of some sort on the big stage because he just hasn't been able to put it together. The only problem I have with the guy is his really lame palm tree tattoos on his stomach. I don't know why, but it pisses me off. But I got Swanson in this fight.
Isn't that some homage to Palm Springs, California or something?
I don't know what it is, but it's like a reverse tramp stamp. I don't know what it is.
And you're from California. You should be respecting the palm trees, man.
I think he's from, I think he's south of me, even more southern. I think he's from, like, Huntington Beach or something like that. So he's from, like, a real rich area, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Ross Pearson, obviously, also another tatted up dude. He's got a pretty wicked sleeve on his right arm. And I ultimately see him taking the fight. The next fight, Brian Ebersol versus TJ Waldberger. You want to break this one down for us?
Sure. Ebersol is a solid journeyman who came to the UFC and opened a lot of eyes, dominating Chris Lytle, and he has since also beat Claude Patrick in a very underwhelming performance, but he also beat the brakes off of Dennis Hallman, who's no joke, so that was very impressive. And Waldberger is a guy from Texas. He's a submission artist. He dominated Jake Hecht, and he did lose to, I believe it was Johnny Hendricks by kind of a questionable TKO. So we got a real solid, experienced and seasoned Ebersol, who's a wrestler, and then we have Waldberger, who's kind of an up-and-comer with a submission game. Hard to tell where this fight's going to go, but I'd have to ultimately say Ebersol wins by pressure, takedowns, and control for a unanimous decision.
Yeah, these are 2 incredibly underrated welterweights. You rarely hear people talking about TJ Waldberger, Brian Ebersol, but Waldberger, I believe 6-1 in his last 7 fights. His only loss coming to Johnny Hendricks, and Brian Ebersol, I think he's on a 9 or 10 fight win streak too. Joined the UFC, beat Lytle, Hallman, and Patrick back to back, which those aren't bad fighters. Those are all pretty legitimate fighters. And Brian Ebersol's got a lot of fights under his belt. I believe he's like 50-15 or something like that. He's a very, very experienced guy. And I also agree seeing Brian Ebersol taking the unanimous nod. And probably next, I mean, whoever wins this fight has got to earn a spot against an elite welterweight. I'm talking top 10.
Yeah, and Ebersol was supposed to fight Rory McDonald at UFC 140. I was really looking forward to that fight. So maybe if McDonald beats Penn, which I doubt he will, but if he does, then I say give these guys another shot at fighting each other. And Ebersol will always hold a place in my heart for not only having the arrow, the chest arrow, but also he holds a cartwheel kick KO earlier in his career, which is pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah, against Shannon Forrester back at XFC a couple years ago. That was really amazing. That was around the time when I first started getting interested in the sport. I believe it was about 3 years ago, and I was watching, I don't know if it was I think it may have been Inside MMA. It was a highlight show, and I saw that cartwheel kick, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm getting interested in this sport. This is crazy. People are literally just cartwheeling forward and knocking each other out. This is awesome.
So you've got a soft spot for Ebersol as well.
Definitely. And I definitely agree with you seeing him taking the unanimous nod. We also got Sam Stout versus Spencer Fisher. This is one of the best rivalries in UFC history just because of the way they go at each other.
Yeah, great trilogy. This will be a way to cap it off. The first fight was kind of close, actually. It was very exciting, but Stout got the nod, and the second fight was nowhere near close. Fisher came in and put on the performance of his career, I think, with some of the best Muay Thai I've ever seen at the lightweight division. You know, not thinking of Barboza here, but he put it on Sam Stout. He was using all kinds of crazy power shots, knees, elbows from the clinch. It was a great performance, but I think at this point in their careers, Stout takes it. I think Fisher is a little past his prime, and he's looked flat the last couple years, so I got Stout in this one.
Definitely. Fisher's been fighting for a while. You know, also a guy who has a bunch of fights under his belt. I believe he's 24-8, but, you know, recently just hasn't been stringing together fights like he should. He's 1-4 in his last 5. His last 5 losses to Stevenson and Seaver. Then he beat Kurt Warburton in the middle there, and then took losses to Ross Pearson and Thiago Tavares, which these two guys definitely aren't the caliber fighters you will see in the previous 2 main event cards in Ebersol Wahlberger and Pearson Swanson, but the way they go at each other, I don't disagree giving them co-main status. And I also agree with you, Chris. Spencer Fisher is definitely one of my favorite fighters just because the way he goes out there and goes at people. But I see a younger Sam Stout. I believe Sam Stout's 28. Spencer Fisher is 36 or 37. And I see Stout taking the fight.
Regardless of the outcome, we're going to see 2 feral cats go at it.
That's what I love. Feral cats fighting each other. Nothing.
No, I agree. It's great. I love seeing two mean, scraggly cats just fighting and scratching. It's gonna be great.
And in the main event, definitely a barn burner. Which this is a fight that could get co-main status in a big pay-per-view card. Maynard versus Guida, 2 awesome lightweights. Both of them probably only a couple fights away from another title shot if they can string some wins together. Maynard just, got off those 2 title shots against Frankie Edgar, the draw and the loss. And Clay Guida has, it seems like he's had so many fights where he's 1 fight away to a title shot and then he drops it. But this will definitely be interesting. You saw Frankie Edgar's advantage over Gray Maynard in both of those fights is he had an iron chin, and as Maynard kept putting it on in the first round, second round, he would gas out and give Edgar a chance to really roar back strong. And I think Guida has some of those same characteristics that Frankie Edgar has, and a strong chin and an excellent wrestling.
I agree. We got 2 top flight wrestlers. Guida could easily fight at featherweight, whereas Maynard is a gigantic lightweight. I think we're going to see a giant strength difference, and I know that Maynard has switched up his training camp to AKA as well as training with Nova União in Brazil, so I think we're going to see a much improved striking game for Gray Maynard, and I think his training partners and the level of training he has at AKA is amazing. And I don't know if you knew this, he's training with the Marinovich brothers, who worked with BJ Penn for his fights against Kenny Florian and Diego Sanchez. So I think we're going to see a Maynard 2.0. The only problem I have with this fight is that if this were a 3-rounder, I got Maynard all day, but it is a 5-rounder. So I'm going to have to say Clay Guida wins this by a split or unanimous decision.
Yeah, it seems like in Maynard's 5-round fights, those extended championship rounds has really been nothing but trouble for him. He'll easily win those first and second rounds, and even though it was just against one guy in Frankie Edgar, unless he changes up his striking, or not his striking, his cardio rather, I Guida, who's a guy who's known for having a killer gas tank, taking it in those later rounds.
Yeah, well, let me ask you, what do you think the Marinovich brothers are going to do for Gray, because we saw amazing results with BJ, but Maynard isn't BJ Penn. Do you think it's really going to make a difference in this fight?
What was that? I'm sorry.
The Marinovich brothers, they made a huge difference in BJ Penn's cardio and his gas tank for his arguably best lightweight performances against Florian and Sanchez. Do you think it's going to make a difference for Gray Maynard on fight night?
I definitely think it will make a difference, but I don't know if there's a way he can reach that same level that Clay Guida fights at, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think it's safe to say that it's really going to come down to those first two rounds, like we said. So on fight night, pay close attention for those first two rounds. If Guida can weather the storm, we're probably going to see a Guida decision.
I once again completely agree with you. It would probably make a more interesting debate if I didn't, but you know, the way I see those last three fights playing out, with Ebersol taking a nod, Stout taking a nod, and Guida taking a nod, that's, you know, all of them seem to have those advantages. Guida having the gas tank advantage, which, you know, has definitely been Maynard's biggest weakness. He has great striking, he has great wrestling, he can put a pounding on you, but he's a guy who's known to gas out, and Guida's a guy who's known to go hard for as many rounds as he needs to.
I agree, and this is a solid card and a great segue into 147.
Exactly.
This could be a pay-per-view, whereas 147 probably shouldn't even be an FX or a Fuel card. That should be a fight night.
Yeah, I've heard people comparing this to UFC 108, which was another card that was known for having less than, you know, the expected caliber of fighter that we've all grown to see on these pay-per-view cards. Basically, it's pretty weird. UFC 147 is basically the tough Brazil finale. Yeah, exactly. And the third fight from the top, you want to start there with Cote and Lee? Yeah, Kung is you know, one of these crazy strikers from Vietnam. We've actually spoken to him. Might have him on the show soon. Actually, hey, I'm getting a caller. Do you want to talk about that, and I'll switch over and see what's up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So Kung, yeah, we've been in contact with him on Twitter, and we'd like to have him on the show. And he is a fantastic fighter. He's getting to be pretty old at 39 or 40 years old, but the guy fought Sanshao before he did martial arts. He had a real easy route to the title by beating Ken Shamrock, but if you go back and watch his Sanshao kickboxing, which is kickboxing with throws and whatnot, it's some really exciting stuff. He's like a whirling dervish in there. He's just throwing all kinds of crazy spinning attacks. He's got the best spinning back kick in MMA. He's got hook kicks, spinning back fists, just a real solid guy, real exciting guy to watch. And Patrick Cote is making his return to the UFC since 2010, I believe it was November or so. And he's put together a couple wins, if I'm not mistaken. He fought for the title at one point.
Hey, I'm back. That was the caller. He wanted to chat up some news. We'll actually be talking news in about probably 10-15 minutes. So if you want to call up, then we'd love to have anybody on to call up and discuss what's happening in MMA. And actually, Chris, I looked. Lee Cote is going to be at 148.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, who the heck is the third down?
You completely took me off guard. I hadn't looked at anything about Lee or Cote. I was like, wait, what? Huh? Wait, huh? Yeah, that's going to be at 148.
Well, who's the third from the top on this one? Is anyone worth mentioning?
The top four cards are actually the Tough Brazil finale fights, which, talking to a lot of people, I don't think many people are familiar with those fighters. So I was only planning on discussing those top two cards, Vanderlei Franklin and Verdum versus Mike Rizzo.
Yeah, you got it. Unless you're like us and you're fanatics and you tune in at 12 o'clock Eastern time on a Sunday night to watch it, you're not going to see it.
Exactly. So let's start with Fabricio Verdum versus Mike Rizzo. Mike is one of these guys who is always seems to play the Rocky sort of underdog. The fight against Todd Duffy, Duffy is a huge favorite as it is beating him up for a majority of the fight, and then this, Chicago cop, Mike Russo, just comes out of nowhere and drops him and then boops him on the nose before the ref pulls him off.
Yeah, he's a solid fighter, but man, is he boring. I go back and I watch his fights with Justin McCauley, his first fight in the UFC. His fights with John Madsen and John Olaf Einamo are beyond boring. I beyond that Todd Duffy fight, which was an amazing comeback, I don't really see the guy ever having a big breakthrough fight or just making any waves, and I just see Verdum finishing him however he wants.
Yeah. I would say this would be a little closer if I was only taking the Fedor and Alistair fights into account, but the way he just beat up Big Country, I don't think Russo has much of a chance in this one. As much as I'd like to see him win, it's a great story. A Chicago cop, and I might be moving to Chicago soon. I just, don't see him having the stand-up or ground ability to keep up with Fabricio. And a Fabricio stand-up was really questioned after that Overeem fight, literally laying on his back and, saying, come on, come down here, come on. But he put a hurting on Roy Nelson on the feet, and Roy Nelson is definitely a top stand-up guy in the heavyweight division.
Go watch Verdum's fight with Andrei Arlovsky at UFC 70, and you will see how big of an improvement he's made. You go and watch that fight, then you watch the Big Country fight, and in his fight against Arlovsky, he was literally running full clips, swinging his arms like he was drunk. And now you look at him, and he's employing clinch tactics, leg kicks. He got a front kick to the face of Big Country, so that's impressed me the most. Definitely.
And the main event, it was originally slated to be the Ultimate Fighter Brazil head coaches Vitor Belfort and Vanderlei Silva, but ultimately Belfort was injured and Rich Franklin was pulled out of his fight against Kung Lee at UFC 148 to fight Vanderlei Silva at 147. I actually caught a interview he did recently, and it was kind of interesting. He was saying the last few months he had been training kind of specifically for Kung Lee as far as recognizing those crazy kicks Lee throws and the different styles Lee comes at you with, and he's totally had to change things up, comparing Vanderlei Silva to a tornado, the way he starts coming at you and will just swing those fists until the other guy's on the ground.
Yeah, he's an absolute monster, even to this day, even if his chin's a little faded. And I'm just glad to see Franklin back. He's been out since UFC 126, and he's always fun to watch. His fights are never boring, really. His fight with Forrest was kind of boring, but beyond that, they're mostly amazing. And these guys had a really fun first fight. I watched that fight with my cousin, Logan Bransfield, and we watched that together, and we both had Vanderlei Silva winning that fight. It was a real sham that Franklin won. It was close, but I really had it 2-1 for Vanderlei. So this is a chance to redeem himself, and it's a good test to see where Franklin's at this point in his career.
Yeah, Franklin's coming off a bit of a layoff. Hasn't been fighting too often. He was pretty active up until that loss to Vitor Belfort in September 2009. Fought 3 times in 2009. Since then, fought once in 2010, once in 2011. This will most likely be his only fight of 2012. And like Swanson, kind of one of those guys who recently has been on a win-loss streak. Beat Matt Hamill, lost to Henderson, beat Vanderlei, lost to Belfort, beat Chuck Liddell with a broken arm. That was awesome. And then lost to Forrest Griffin by unanimous decision at UFC 126.
Yeah, it's crazy. So look at Franklin's career. He's fought Machida early on, and he had a real weak start to his UFC career. He was fighting guys like Edwin DeWeese and Evan Tanner and Ken Shamrock. Those aren't barn burner, real top caliber guys. But then you look at him now, and the guys you just mentioned are, the cream of the crop in multiple weight classes. So I think he's really had a trial by fire the last couple of years.
Definitely. And Vanderlei, almost in the same spot. Also, he's obviously one of the guys who's fought some of the best people. He himself is one of the most legendary names in the sport. Of course, dating back to his Pride days. Now also on a win-loss, lost to Franklin, beat Michael Bisping, which is one of the biggest head-scratchers of the last couple of years. Bisping's let it be known that he is a force to be reckoned with in the 185 division, definitely ranked higher than Vanderlei at this point. But somehow Vanderlei took that unanimous nod at UFC 110 back in 2010, lost to Chris Lieben, which I would love to see Vanderlei and Lieben just fight each other maybe 10 times, just every other card, Lieben versus Vanderlei, because that was
real good for long-term health.
And his last fight against Kung Lee, where most everybody was taking Lee, as it was his debut in the UFC, and he is one of those guys, like I mentioned earlier, who has phenomenal just spinning kicks and unorthodox taekwondo, and now he's got a chance to avenge that UFC 99 loss to Rich Franklin, which, interesting enough, you don't see a lot of catchweight fights in the UFC, but both fights between Vanderlei and Rich Franklin are going to be catchweight fights. The first one back in 2009 was fought at 195 pounds, and this one's going to be at 190 pounds.
Yeah, I just don't get it, dude. Like, where's the justification? It makes no sense to me because it's short notice. Is that why both times short notice? Or actually, the first time it was because Vanderlei was planning on moving down, and he asked the brass if he could have a kind of in between weight to where he could get used to the weight cut. But this one just doesn't make sense. I don't understand the second time.
Well, Franklin fights a lot at a catchweight. I believe 3 of his last 5 fights now are going to be catchweight fights. The 2 fights against Vanderlei and his fight against Vitor Belfort was also at 195. I don't understand it. The UFC needs to recognize that these fights, if they're fought divisionally at middleweight or at light heavyweight, mean a lot more to those divisions than if they fight at a catchweight where you're kind of just like, they're kind of in the middle, whatever. Yeah,
I mean, if we keep on adding weight classes, we've gone over this probably 100 times. We keep on adding them, it waters it down, it becomes like boxing, and they don't mean that much. But this catchweight stuff with Franklin's really funny. You hear Franklin weight all the time, and it's kind of true.
Yep, and this fight's actually going to be fought 5 pounds below Franklin weight, but nonetheless, definitely, I mean, Franklin has been one of those guys who early on in his career, never known as a boring fighter, but I think recently he's fought more aggressively. I mean, obviously knocking out Chuck Liddell with a broken arm, that was insane. And against Vanderlei, I kind of expect to see him try and fight at an aggressive pace to match Vanderlei. He was talking to Boss Rutan yesterday on Inside MMA and was talking about that, saying he can't sit back. He can't sit back and let Vanderlei just come at him. He has to fight back and can't have his back against the cage the whole match.
Yeah, you got to bully the bully. And can we talk about Franklin's new head of hair? Oh man, it's ravishing. Look at, I saw his pre-fight, on the Countdown show, the extended 10-minute preview, and he's got what seems like a brand new head of hair.
I'm calling it emo Franklin.
Yeah, I remember that. All he needs is one single tear to roll out of one of his eyes, and it's official.
Well, it's kind of odd because Franklin had a pretty badass widow's peak, which I'm not hating on the widow's peak. One of my favorite figures in sports, Florida basketball coach Billy Donovan. Look him up. He has one of the most incredible widow's peaks in the world. I mean, it almost goes back behind his ears. But now he's gone from the shaved down widow's peak, which he's rocked for a majority of his career, more of a dark Spider-Man look with the it's a kind of a Brian Bowles sort of look, maybe.
Bowles cut.
Bowles cut.
No, you know what? I honestly think it's a tactical error on Franklin's part, because we all know that when someone has long hair and they get punched, even though it's not that hard of a punch, their hair flies around, and judges always take that into account as far as power strikes. So
that is very true.
Move against Wanderlei Silva.
And if you're done talking about Silva Franklin, I think that transitions perfectly into this story about Guida braiding his hair back by the request of Gray Maynard on Friday.
Yep.
All right, yeah. So let's get into the news, and as promised last week, we have a badass news theme to start us off. That's right, we're a fancy podcast. All right, yeah. And what I only see as a psychological tactic, I don't see Maynard actually believing this. Maynard went to the state commission and asked them to request Guida to not have his hair free flowing and everything, either cut it or braid it back. And instead of going to the actual hearing and going through all the process, which I do believe Guida would have won. I mean, I don't think in any of Guida's previous fights, I don't think his hair has stopped any of his opponents from doing anything. It was obviously a psychological tactic, and I think Guida responded pretty admirably and basically just said, you know what, I don't need to waste my time. I don't need to go to the hearing. I'm training for this fight. I don't need to take that valuable time out of my schedule. So I'm just going to cornrow it back, braid it up, and fight with cornrows like Fedor did in his first few UFC fights.
What was Maynard's exact reasoning for this? I mean, he actually, it wasn't Maynard. He said it wasn't him. It was his team that filed it. And what was the exact reasoning? Because his hair gets in your eyes when you're on the ground? I really don't understand it.
I believe after that, you're right, his camp did do that. I'm looking at the story now to get an exact quote. The rule that they were challenging was, quote, whether head or facial hair presents any hazard to the safety of the unarmed combatant or his opponent will interfere with the supervision and conduct of the contest or exhibition, which is obviously just a bunch of mumbo-jumbo. I guess what Maynard's camp said is exactly that. He doesn't want it to get into his eyes, and Guida's camp came back saying, quote, Clay will be braiding his hair back. Clay is not focused on this and has one objective, winning. Nothing will distract him from this goal.
Wow, I think it's a two-way street, man, because, okay, maybe his hair is going to get in your eyes when you're on the ground, but also when he's standing, his hair's in his eye and his vision isn't that good. I've never understood why he has his hair that long, but it's a two-way street, and there's a perfect analogy to this, or a similar story. Joe Lozon filed a complaint against George Soteropoulos before their fight, saying that Soteropoulos' knee guards and ankle guards were to help get him traction on the ground, kind of like Shinya Aoki. Mm-hmm. Soteropoulos didn't wear any of them for that fight against Lozon and finished him with a submission. So I think it's one of those things where it gives them more traction, but you could get more traction too if you went for a leg lock. So I think it's give and take.
Exactly. And this obviously was a psychological move. Like I said before, Guida's hair's never, poked any opponent's eyes or never blocked view of a referee or anything like that. And Maynard came back, kind of interestingly enough, said, I never filed a complaint. This is the first I ever heard about it, which is obviously bullshit. He knows he was defeated with that little bit of mind games and is refusing it, which I guess there's maybe a 1% chance that his camp did it without letting him know, but chances that happened I don't think are very likely.
Yeah, who knows? We'll never know if he filed it or didn't. I mean, unless there's public record. But either way, it's just, like you said, a distraction from what's really important, and that's who's going to win on Friday night.
Exactly. And yeah, I cannot wait for that fight. Friday is going to have the UFC on FX card, the Bellator card. I think the Fedor Rizzo fights that night too. So Friday should be an amazing night for the sport.
I'm actually getting work off for that. I haven't gotten my schedule yet, so whenever I get that, I'm switching with someone so I can make the main card. Maybe we could do a post-fight breakdown.
We might be able to do that. Definitely tune into @the MMA Podcast on Twitter or go on the MMApodcast.com. We always keep you up to date with news, podcast news, who we're going to have on, when we're going to have people on. So definitely stay tuned for that. Also, we have links to our iTunes, different episodes, and all that good stuff. Also, definitely tweet us now at the MMA Podcast or call in. We're talking about the news. I've had my eye on the studio waiting to see if our guy who called in about a half an hour ago wants to talk news. Maybe he had to go do something else, or maybe he's just waiting for us to bring up what he wants to talk about. But definitely call in. The number is 646-378-1046, and we're probably going to be talking news for another 15 or so minutes before we call up Bart Palaszewski, UFC featherweight, who I believe is in Albuquerque, New Mexico right now, training with Jackson's. Definitely plan on talking to him about that.
Can I bring up a little Twitter interaction I've had, actually? It's kind of interesting.
Bring it up, buddy.
Darren Cruikshank sent out a tweet. It's zombie, the zombie apocalypse. Everyone give me your favorite way to kill a zombie. And I put thermite tip repeater crossbow. No one has ever thought of that one. And he said, dude, epic. That is epic, Darren. Thank you, sir.
I would just say straight up chainsaw. I mean, I'm kind of an old school guy. Just give me a chainsaw and I'll be happy with the zombie apocalypse.
How about a double barrel shotgun with an underslung chainsaw?
I'm an old school guy. I don't really need to be blasting out buckshot, wasting shells. I'll just spin around with that chainsaw and do work on all of them.
Hey, man, that always works, dude. You can never go wrong with a chainsaw.
Hey, it's June 19th, which means we're about 5 months away from the zombie apocalypse, which I do believe the Mayans predicted. So I'll definitely need to stock up on some Ryobi chainsaws. Yeah,
with all this bath salt cannibalism going around the country, it seems to be pointing to that. Or maybe the Mayans were just some pranksters, and it's the greatest prank of all time.
Hey, I live about 150 miles away from Miami, so I've definitely had my eye out for those face-eating bath salt zombies for sure. Because there are local Bed Bath & Beyonds. I don't know if they're the actual brand Bed Bath & Beyond, but they're similar stores who locally sell bath salts. Students here at UF do bath salts, which is you would think University of Florida, it's got some of the hardest admission requirements in the state, but apparently they're not bright enough to stay away from something that would make you want to eat somebody else's face.
We can all agree people are frickin' nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. But going back to Maynard, saying that he never filed a complaint, talking about this he said, she said stuff. We were talking last week. Dana White came out and was talking about Shogun Rua and the fact that he refused to fight against Glover Teixeira. Now Shogun's coming out refuting what Dana's saying, that he won't fight Glover. What do you think about all this?
I think it's none of our freaking business until a contract's signed. I don't care if anyone turns down a fight, and I don't really want to hear about it. It makes for 10 seconds of interesting news, but it's turned into a debacle where, it's a he said, she said, and we'll never know the truth, so just keep it out of the news.
You wonder why Dana has all of these disputes with fighters, which I do think he is an amazing president. I don't think with most other minds you could elevate the UFC to the great level it's at now, but at the same time, Dana sparks up shit that just doesn't need to be said, saying, oh, Shogun Rua didn't want to fight Glover Teixeira. And now the fact that Shogun's denying it, obviously this is a little bit of heat developing between Dana and Shogun, which didn't need to happen in the first place, because Dana doesn't need to be saying, oh, this person turned down that person, because the real truth of the matter, fighters turn down other fighters all the time. Shogun turning down Glover Teixeira was not the first ever instance of a UFC fighter refusing to fight another UFC fighter. It happens so often, most of which we don't hear about, and I completely agree with, we don't need to hear about, If it's something like a number one contendership fight, if Shogun and Glover were the number 2 and 3 light heavyweights in the world now, yes, I would want to hear about it. But this isn't an obvious fight that needs to be made, and whether Shogun turned it down or not, I don't really think it has much merit to his career, the light heavyweight title picture, Glover's career. There are so many other fighters Shogun can fight, so many other fighters Glover can fight. I really have no idea what Dana's intentions were for bringing this up, because obviously he doesn't bring it up when, every time someone turns someone down, or else he would be coming out every other day, oh, Koscheck turned down this guy, oh, Bisping turned down this guy, oh, Shogun turned down, Glover. If it's not an obvious number one title contendership fight or title fight, we don't care.
Yeah, it's muddying the waters, and there's obviously something we don't know that we're missing, which is it's just confusing us. We're confused about it, and that's not a good thing, like you said. And like you said, Shogun needs a bigger name. I'm sorry. Glover's a great fighter, but he is nowhere near the top of the division, in my opinion, and I don't think Shogun should take that fight. He should take someone with a bigger name, and like when Anderson there was a short notice fight against Anderson Silva in 2008 for a UFC fight night. 4 people turned that fight down, or 3 did. One of them was Thiago Silva, and we don't need it. And we're just hearing about this 3 years later. It's like it's none of our business.
It is absolutely none of our business. Which, if the opponent fighter wants to come out and he hears about it, wants to talk shit about it, sure, because people talking shit is really entertaining. Exhibit A, Chael Sonnen. Exhibit B, Nick Diaz. I can go down to Exhibit Z if I need to. But people, fighters talking shit back and forth to each other, that's entertaining. The president of the UFC talking shit about another fighter just muddies up the sport, kind of like how Carlos Condit was talking about TRT, which TRT isn't an issue we'll get into tonight. A future episode, we're definitely going to have an in-depth conversation about it. But, just using his quote, it just muddies up the waters and makes these disputes between fighters and staff we don't need, and it leads to things happening like people leaving the UFC because they aren't happy with Dana White, which we've seen on multiple occasions.
Maybe the Meniere's disease is going to turn Dana White into a zombie.
Maybe he already is a zombie.
Maybe.
Dun, dun, dun. All right, talking about other Brazilian fighters in the news, unfortunately, Antonio Nogueira, Big Nog, he's going to be out at 149. He was slated to fight Czech Congo, but he's still, feeling the repercussions from that nasty arm break from Frank Mir, which every time Mir fights, I couldn't stand the build-up to Mir versus Velasquez, because they probably showed that arm break in the countdown show, primetime show, lead up to the fight, probably a combined 60 times, and I had to turn my head every time because that shit was nasty.
Did he re-injure himself? Was it his shoulder or his arm? Do you know his exact injury? Did they ever come out with that?
I don't believe it was a re-injury. I think they just thought it was going to heal faster. The fight was made 1 or 2 months ago while he was still partially injured, and he was training but expecting his arm to be back to 100%, and 149 isn't too far away. So I guess his arm's still kind of fucked up to the point where he feels it won't be 100% by the time UFC 149 rolls up, and I believe August in Calgary.
These guys need to take their time. I mean, I know they just want to get back in the competition. It's how they support their families. But, I mean, I really hope GSP is in the same boat and he's just not rushing it. No pun intended. Yeah, he shouldn't be rushing it because, I mean, he's one of the greatest fighters, you know, out there right now, and I would hate to see him re-injure it and never come back the same. So take your time, GSP. Big Nog, best of luck to you and your recovery.
Yeah, actually 149 is July 21st, a month and 2 days from now in Calgary. That, you know, 148 and 149 are both shaping up to be awesome cards, which kind of offsets what we're going to be seeing at 147 and the tough Brazil finales. But, yeah, UFC 149, obviously headlining with Faber Barao. We have Hector Lombard versus Tim Boetsch. Chick Congo is now going to be fighting heavyweight Sean Jordan, who's going to replace Big Nog. And in the welterweight division, we have CR, pronunciation guy with the last name?
CR what?
CR, the welterweight from Afghanistan. CR the Great.
Oh. I thought you were saying the letters C.R.
Oh.
Like, who the heck? No, okay.
C.R. Dalloway. He changed his letters.
Bahadurzada.
Bahadurzada fighting the Canadian Chris Clements. Which, interesting enough, we'll probably go a little bit deeper on it when we break down that card. But CR, I was debating a friend. He's had visa issues and hasn't ever fought in the United States, and I'm wondering, you know, if he ever will fight in the United States, you know, because he has been known to have issues with holding down that visa, or getting it to begin with, not holding on to it. But yeah, 149 is going to be a great card. 148, obviously, was probably going to be the best card ever until Cruz Faber got canceled. But still, you have the most anticipated fight of all time in Anderson Sonnen 2, Lee Cote, Griffin Ortiz, Stun Gun Maya, Mendez McKenzie. I mean, I can go all the way down the list, and almost all of them are barn burners. So I cannot wait for that one.
That Lee Cote, man, threw me for a loop. But real quick, with CR, it was an interesting mix-up because Alves was originally supposed to fight Akiyama, and I was thinking, man, Akiyama can't get a break. He has fought the who's who in 2 separate divisions so far. And then Akiyama gets injured. Alves and CR steps in against Alves. I'm like, well, this fight is even better. This is awesome. Alves gets injured. Now it's some guy that we don't even know that's probably just going to get smashed in all of 30 seconds. So it was an interesting shake-up, and hopefully down the road CR can actually face off against Alves. I would love that fight.
We got a couple other bits of news to do before we call up Bartimus. But before we do that, you want to knock out our 10 solid seconds of sports?
Let's go.
Let us do the 10 solid seconds of sport. The Miami Heat gained ground on the young Oklahoma City Thunder, taking 2 straight games and 2-1 series lead heading into Game 4 tonight. The Olympic course of the U.S. Open ravages golfers as Webb Simpson takes the title going 1 over par. Congress are quick. Oh, God.
It's over. It's all over.
It's all over. We're done. You know, there wasn't much UFC news that was too noteworthy. A lot of little things. You know, Mir talking about wanting to go to the WWE. Penn saying that Rory better have a good enough gas tank for the fight. A lot of things that'll make you scratch your head, but just not really noteworthy enough to go on about for a while. But outside of the UFC, legendary Muay Thai striker Bukaw talked about he might be willing to do MMA, and he's actually one of your favorite fighters, Chris. So you should educate our listeners onto who this Bukaw guy is.
Absolutely. Bukaw is he's pretty young. He's what, 28, 29? I don't have that pulled up.
I believe so, yeah.
He's pretty young. He has had, I believe, 200 or 300 Muay Thai and kickboxing fights. The guy is an animal. He's been fighting since he was 6 years old. He's fought in the King Stadium. I forget. I think he fought against Melchor Maynor, who is a big-time Filipino kickboxer who trains guys in, I believe it is Long Beach, somewhere around there. But he's been fighting for a long time. He has fought the who's who of the kickboxing community, and his style, it's amazing. These Thai kickboxers, they have a rhythm. They come out slow the first round, but then they just build up to this insane rhythm where they just push the pace like nobody's business. He throws the best leg kicks in kickboxing besides Overeem. You know, for a small guy, Bukaw fights at 155. He kicks like a heavyweight, and
Definitely.
a lot of knees. His boxing's pretty, not that great. You never see him really knock anyone out with his hands, but he's an amazing kickboxer, and I know he wanted to quit kickboxing because he had some kind of contract dispute with, I believe it's his training camp. It might be Tiger Time. I'm not sure exactly who it is. So if he wants to transition to MMA, I wish him the best of luck. He's probably top 3 favorite kickboxers of all time for me.
Yeah, just to back up what you said, he's 30 years old, been fighting since he was 8 years old, and his record is 364 wins, 14 losses, 9
Whoa! 364.
364, 14, and 9 is his record.
Wow.
And
testosterone for sure.
Yeah, and his last fight was, I believe, pretty recently, a few months ago, and it was a win, a second round win by punches. And just about 3 weeks ago, he told the press he was retiring, which a lot of people think is just a way for him to retire out of Muay Thai and move on to MMA, because he has been seen in jiu-jitsu classes, judo classes, wrestling classes, and moving on to MMA would allow Bukaw to breach his contract with the company he is with now. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Por Parmak, but that.
Oh
is
yeah. That's it. His kickboxing name, his fighting name is Bukaw Por Parmak. The Por Parmak part is the gym, and the first name is actually, like, I don't think that's even his real name. I don't know what Bukaw means, but it's some other kind of significant thing regarding that. But he is actually training at Evolution MMA in Singapore, that giant facility where Shinya Aoki is training out of. A lot of guys are going there because apparently it's just a great place to train.
Yeah. His real name is actually Bukaw Banchemek. But he has easily the craziest record I've ever seen in combat sports. 364, 364, 14 and 9, 387 total fights. Guy's an animal.
That's mind-boggling, man. I can't even wrap my head around that.
Yeah, he's been fighting for 21 years and has 364 wins, so he wins a fight about every 21 days. About every 3 weeks, he'll win a fight.
That guy must be a blast to party with.
Oh my gosh, I hope he just isn't one of those guys who gets really wasted and gets violent and just starts throwing kicks all over the place.
Yeah, full Scotsman.
Full Scotsman. Didn't he go missing a while back?
Yeah, so that was the story. Nobody could find him, but he said he was okay, and he was just laying on the low. I don't know exactly why, but...
On the low.
Yeah, I don't think we ever found out why.
That's pretty interesting. All right, so you ready to bring Bart Palaszewski in here?
Man, I can't wait. Can't wait to talk to the guy.
Let us call him up. Yeah, Bart, before we call him up, we'll give a little bit of an intro for our listeners. One of these guys, like we had Eddie Wineland on last week, a perennial top 10 guy in the division, just fought Hatsuhioki, who was apparently offered a title shot after the fight. So that was basically a number one title contendership fight. He just fought in the 145 division. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him eventually reach a title fight and fight Jose Aldo for the featherweight belt in the coming couple years. A 36-15 guy at age 29, so he's got a lot of fights under his belt for how young he is. Polish guy, he's American now, though, fighting out of Illinois. He's actually in New Mexico now, fighting or training rather with Jackson's, and we definitely plan on talking to him about that.
The Mecca of MMA.
Really is. All right, so let me load up the call. You have anything to say about Bart before we get him on, Chris?
Nah, man. I'll just let it flow when we get him on.
Hell yeah. All right, let me dial him up in our super technological studio we got going here. Should hear a ringtone in a second.
Hello.
Hey, Bart, how's it going? It's Jake with the MMA Podcast. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Really good. We're on the air now. We just talked about you for a minute to introduce you to the fighters, and I mentioned you were in New Mexico training with Jackson's now. How's that going?
It's cool. Getting used to the altitude a little bit sucks, but training's awesome. The atmosphere's great. The coaching's great. I'm loving it.
What brought you out there exactly?
Just change of pace. I was with Jeff for I don't even know, 12 years or so. Going on 13. So, I'm still training out there in between fights and stuff. But I've been coming out here for a week, every month or so, and then I'm going to be doing my camps out here. Just change of pace and change of training partners. There's so much talent out here. That's the biggest. I mean, obviously their coaching's phenomenal and everything, but training with the same people for 12 years, it gets stale after a while. Just kind of try to spread my horizons a little bit.
Definitely. So is this move to Jackson's something you plan on doing for future fights, or just for this one coming up?
No, from now on, all my camps are going to be down at Jackson's MMA.
Oh, nice. Did you have any friends there to start off that initially brought you in? Or is it just that Jackson's is such a name? A lot of people call it the Mecca for MMA, like Chris said a minute ago.
Well, I've known Clay for like 10 years. We fought back in the day, but we always talked. We always stayed, and then I was looking for something, and I started poking around. I was asking around where, thinking about where to go and stuff, and then, Clay was like, dude, you should come out, check it out. And I did, and I literally did one session. I came out, it was a Tuesday afternoon. I did the Tuesday afternoon training session, and right then and then, they were like, hey, how long are you staying here? I'm like, I'm just a week, I'm staying here for a week, but I'm going to be doing my camps here. Like, it just seemed right away, and I love it, man. It's great. Obviously, being away from the family it's horrible. I hate it. Even it's been like 3 days, and I'm gonna be away from them for like 8 weeks, so it's gonna be rough, but. A lot of downtime, definitely. I'm training as much as I do back home. I do 3 sessions a day, and but at home I actually have to do stuff. I have to go pick up my daughter or get her ready, or actually do stuff outside of training and eating and sleeping. Yeah. And here, like this morning, I trained, and then I just sat here for like 4 hours, and I was like, what the hell am I going to do? I'm on I literally since Sunday night. I'm on my second season of Dexter. I saw Dexter for the first time before I left, and Literally, it's Tuesday afternoon, and I'm on my second season already.
That's a great show.
A little bit of comfort, man. You got a little comfort out there, right?
Oh yeah, it's great. Just like I said, just a lot of downtime, and that's it, man. Just train, eat, and sleep. Literally, that's all I get, and then watch Dexter.
So you think long term you might move the family out to New Mexico from Illinois?
No. They might come up with me for my camps and stuff, but I definitely want to stay in the Midwest. I'm definitely afraid of spiders, and there's a lot of spiders out here. And I'm pigment challenged, man. This sun is not good for me. I gotta wear SPF 50 like 24/7 out here. So, no, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Not really. Not really looking to move. You know, my parents are in the Midwest, my sister or my nephews and stuff. I'll definitely be coming out here at least, for about a week every month, and I'm gonna be doing my camps out here. But as far as moving my family out here, I don't know. We'll see. I'm not gonna say no, but we'll see. As of right now, definitely not.
Definitely. You said Clay was one of the people who brought you in, and obviously Clay is headlining this UFC on FX card on Friday. You planning on flying out to New Jersey for the fight, or are you going to watch it on TV?
I'm going to watch it on TV. I'm actually going to be flying home on Friday night and then speeding home from the airport so I can watch the fight live because nice. I'm a Twitter freak, and I can't stay off of it, and everybody tweets results, like, immediately. Like, I'm pretty sure people tweet results before the fight happens these days, like, somehow. But, yeah, so I'm going to be hopefully staying off the Twitter and just cruising home as fast as I can so I can watch it.
And everyone definitely follow Bart, Bartimus7, Bartimus, number 7, on Twitter. He definitely has one of the more funny and interesting Twitters as far as fighters go out there.
Hey, Bart, this is Chris, host of MMA Podcast, man. I just want to say it's kind of surreal talking to you, man, because I've been watching you since your IFL days. I was getting into the sport right about the time you were fighting, and it was on live TV. And I just wanted to know what it's like fighting in that team atmosphere, the MMA team style that we don't really see too much. What was that like for you?
It was awesome, man. We really got close. Everybody on the team got super close, Over the last few years, we kind of drifted apart. I stayed in touch with Rory and Mike C a little bit, but everybody else kind of drifted apart, got married, and then having kids and kind of growing up. But during the IFL days, man, we clicked, man. We were together 24/7, literally. We would train together. I think the only thing that we didn't do together is go to the bathroom, literally. But I mean,
that kind of help.
Yeah. Hey, you need help? No. I mean, we would break bread, at least once a day together, and train twice a day, and always run together. And then obviously during the fight week, we cut weight. I mean, we were together nonstop, man. It was awesome. You almost became like we became like brothers, which is weird that we were so close. And then we drifted apart so easily. It was almost like a marriage, You get so close to a person, then you divorce them, you never talk to them again.
Man. Well, hopefully you guys can reconnect someday.
Get remarried. Nah. It was good, man. Like I said, the guy obviously got no beef with anybody. We're not as close as we were used to, but it was great. I loved it. It was a great experience. I got nothing bad to say. I think it was just a little too early in the involvement of the sport. Sorry, the phone keeps just freaking going off. I think it was a little too early in this.
Bart? I think we've lost Bart. Is he there?
I think we may have lost him from the call. You there, Bart?
I'm still here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
we can hear you now. Before I kind of dive into where you're at right now divisionally, I kind of wanted to ask you about Chris Horodecki and the IFL. I remember the second fight, he came out of that fight looking like he hit a lawnmower, and you didn't have a scratch on your face. And you said, I just don't know what I have to do to beat this kid in the eyes of the judges, man. How frustrating was that for you to put on really awesome performances and not get recognized by those judges?
I was suicidal. I mean, dude, it was awful. You know, both fights, I've dropped him. I said, you know, he looked like he had in a car. And, you know, I would lose fights. I mean, it was insane. You know, I've rewatched, I think those are the two fights I've rewatched the most in my entire life out of all fights. I've seen those fights probably hundreds of times. And it brings a tear in my eye, man. You know, I fought I beat his wife. And, you know, some dipshit judges, you know, they like, have no clue about MMA. You know, they've been around since, you know, the 20s. They're like 90 years old, and, you know, they pretty much are handling our careers, if you know, when it goes the distance, which, you know, I guess don't leave it in the hands of the idiots.
Right.
So,
it doesn't seem to be getting any better, does it? It really doesn't seem to be getting any better at all. I think they need a revamp of the system. You agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like Dana even says, the only consistent thing about judging in MMA is how inconsistent they are. I mean, it's in boxing too, you know. I mean, look at the last Pacquiao fight. I mean, when they said it was a split decision, I was just like, what? I mean, Pacquiao, does he have to kill him to get a decision? I mean,
I think we all felt that way, man.
I mean, even before the fight, they were talking about the judges, how they shouldn't be judging the fight because they're old and they suck. I mean, they pretty much, that's what they said, and then they have them judge the fight, and this insane call comes out of it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, experience is one thing, but, you know, I don't think you should be judging fights today, you know? I mean, that's just my opinion.
I think anyone with a decent pair of eyes saw that you won the fight. I thought that back then. And kind of jumping into your more recent career, man, you had a great run in the WEC. You armbarred Darbedian, who was coming off that domination of, what's his name? Oh, God, Razor Rob. And you really put it on him, and you beat Anthony Pettis and Tyson Griffin, who were really close to title shots in their respective divisions. I know your fight with Tyson was at featherweight, but Tyson got close to a title shot at lightweight. So you put together some real solid wins. You had that tough fight against Hatsu Hiyoki, but what do you see is next for you? I mean, I know you're not scheduled for a fight, but I mean, do you see a fight out there that really intrigues you?
No, just whatever UFC says. I mean, I would like to get a striker, maybe, you know, or instead of a guy that's trying to just, you know, lay on top of me. I mean, I just look at this, you know, if Hatsu Hiyoki, which is like he's supposed to be this grappling stud, doesn't finish me, I don't see anybody else finishing me. But, you know, if they want to make a boring fight, yeah, I mean, put me with a wrestler and he's all lay on top of me, and, you know, it's going to be a fight that's going to, you know, hopefully be on the undercard because nobody wants to see it, including me. But, you know, hopefully I get a striker. I just want to fight at this point, you know. The Hatsu Hiyoki fight, you know, I took a giant dump with that, and, you know, I'm out of the run for this belt, obviously, once again. You know, just get the fights and get back, you know, work my way back up. You know, getting some, you know, exciting fights. Hopefully a couple, you know, knockouts. You know, I want to hit that 20. That's 320. I think I'm at 17 or 18. So I want to hit at least 20 knockouts before the end of my career.
Yeah, I would personally love to see you matched up against an exciting guy like Diego Nunes or Charles Oliveira. Or Oliveira, what is it? Charles Oliveira. Wow. Charles Oliveira.
Oliveira?
Aloe Vera?
We call him Aloe Vera.
Vera? Yeah, I mean, whatever. I would like a fight, you know, that I don't have to worry about a takedown once in a while. And
well, you're extremely well-rounded, man. You've got tons of submissions, tons of knockouts. You're just a real guy, a real grizzled veteran who pushes the pace, and I can't wait to see what happens after you work with Greg Jackson. I think having Yoda in your corner will definitely give you some much-needed strength in the force.
Oh, definitely. You know, Greg's a great guy, man. Really, he goes out of his way, and great coaching. I mean, I got nothing bad to say for our team current and stuff. You know, all the guys. But doing obviously something right here. He's got some kind of I don't know, trick or power or something. That, you know, I mean, he's got the highest percentage wins in the UFC. I mean, like I said, he's obviously doing something right.
Yeah, Bart, I wanted to ask what initially got you into mixed martial arts? Your first professional fight, you were 19 years old. Were you wrestling before that, or what exactly worked into you going pro in MMA?
It was, I guess you could say it's a long story. When I started training, I was like 16.
You're cutting out a little bit for us.
Okay, yeah, and then
yeah.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, at 16, like I said, I started training at 16, and about 6 months into my training, Jeff show, the MMA show at the local roller ring, and it was a challenge.
You're fading out. Yeah. Yeah, you keep fading out on us.
Am I?
Well, yeah, it's weird. Every time you're like, can you hear me now? You're perfectly crystal clear, and then you start getting back into it, and you break up a little bit.
Yeah, my signal's going in and out. I don't
Are
want
you
to
on
AT&T? Yeah.
Well, you're perfect now. I guess we'll give it one more shot. We heard up to you were 16 when you started to train.
Like and show.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. But
story.
Yeah, but no, I mean, oh, you're back again. And he's back. I guess we'll just wrap it up. Keep fading in and out.
Guys.
But no. You have been more. Oh, okay. Well, you're perfect now. We'll give it one final last shot.
All right. So I went to an MMA show. I thought it was just going to be like a pro wrestling kind of deal. And when I saw this fight, that's what I wanted to do, man. I kind of fell in love with it. That was it. Next 2 years I spent training, and that's it. We got a fight at a local show, and the rest is history, as cliche as that sounds.
Yeah, it's a kind of crazy story. You started off 0-4, but then after those, you won 29 before your next 4 losses. What was it like keeping yourself motivated, wanting to keep taking fights after starting off a little bit slippery?
I wasn't making money, or I had a job at the time, work program that I was in. I was just fighting, that's what can be, losing and coming back, where a lot of man, I love training, and unfortunately, if you want to train full time and do this sport, you're gonna have to fight so you can make, eat and just live in general, pay your bills. So I just love it, man. That's it. Like I said, the first probably 20 fights, I probably made, I don't know, about $5,000 for the total.
Wow.
If I spent money on training and for the love of the sport.
Yeah, well, Bart, thank you so much for coming on. It really means a lot to us, and we're really looking forward to you coming back. You were talking about coming back. We're really looking forward to seeing you roar back after this last fight. You have any shout-outs before we let you go?
I would see Team Jackson just welcome you with their arms open and for great training. Team Curran, I'm still training out there, and thank you for many years of kicking my butt. And VFD Sports, the management company, the point there, make everything else happen. So that's it. Those are the three. Thank you for having me.
Hey,
guys.
Barnabas, I can't wait to see you, chomping down on that mouthpiece, slinging leather, and I hope you get to see your family soon and finish up that season of Dexter. You have a good day.
Take care, guys.
Thanks a lot, bud.
You're welcome. Bye.
All right, and that was Bart Palaszewski. Definitely follow him, like I said before, at Bartimus7, Bartimus 7. That was a great interview. Him talking about changing camps. That's really something you rarely think about as far as fighters constantly bounce around from camp to camp, and a lot of these fighters have families, and their lifestyle has to change dramatically, whether it's actually moving their family out to where they train, like Bartimus said he's leaving the possibility open for, or just going on the road and living much differently without that family unit like he said he's doing now.
Hey man, we're 5 for 5 on excellent interviews.
Hey, let's keep the streak rolling. We were originally slated to also have Jeff Hoagland on tonight, but we couldn't get in contact with him. He is a great guy, and I know one of the guys who trains with him actually, and a consummate gentleman, and I'm sure we will have him on in one of the podcasts to come. I actually just checked a MMA news feed source and had to bring this up before we wrap up our third episode. Steven Seagal has come out with a lot of ridiculous things. Famous for the yellow glasses, a cop in Jefferson County, Louisiana. But this came out just about half an hour ago. I wanted to see what you thought about it. Steven Seagal was talking shit about Gene LaBelle, talking him a total asshole, whatever. I don't really care about a feud between Steven Seagal and Gene LaBelle. But Steven Seagal also discussed Anderson Silva in a pretty pompous way. I'm going to quote him directly. This is what he said. With me, he's been very, very, very humble. He either fears me or pretends to fear me. He's a consummate gentleman, great student, and a great friend. To me, he's the way I'd want any of my students or friends to be.
Yeah, I did read that, and I've seen a video of them training together. It's like a 10-minute video where they train at the Black House, and it does seem like Anderson is, very... I don't know if he's fearful, but he was like yelping out in pain when Seagal got him in a wrist lock, and he seemed very humble. So Seagal has a huge bloated ego as well as a huge bloated gut, and the guy's just hilarious, unintentionally. And you know what, man? Whatever. He wants to take credit for the front kick and the flying crane kick, and by all means. But I think it's just ridiculous. And hopefully, when Chael smashes Anderson on the 7th, then we don't have to hear from him anymore. Definitely.
I really don't know whether I should buy into this whole Seagal thing or not, because Anderson Silva, guys like him, Lyoto Machida, they swear by him, and these are some of the most devastating strikers in the game. Yet they're swearing by a guy who, was more well known for being an action star and kind of crappy 80s movies than actually being a legit mixed martial artist like a Chuck Norris or something like that.
Yeah, have you noticed that the Nogueiras and Dos Santos have nothing to do with them? I wonder why.
Yeah, it's almost like he's just developed a little cult following between Anderson and Lyoto, but I will definitely be donning my yellow shades for 148.
Yeah, I will be donning my Book of Reason by Chael Sonnen for that night.
You picked that up yet?
I have not. No, I'm gonna print out the cover of his book and hang it on my wall right before that fight starts.
I'm not gonna wait a year or two because it seems like after a book's been released for a little while, people start selling it used, and within months the average used price drops down to like 30 cents. I mean, I had picked up Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential used off Amazon for literally 3 cents, and it wasn't damaged or anything. It was a pretty nice copy.
Yeah, I'd love to support Chael, but I'm a broke individual at the moment, so I'll just in spirit support him. And he's the most interesting man in MMA, so we'll see what happens on the 7th.
Yeah, I'll be shelling $60 out for that card if I don't head out for it. So I'm sure that's supporting Chael enough.
Agreed.
So before we sign us out, Chris, what'd you learn today?
I learned that Palaszewski loves Dexter, man. Of all shows out there, I wouldn't have picked him for that one, but he does kind of look like a serial killer when he's out there putting a beating on people, so I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, I learned that although he may love Dexter, he hates spiders.
Yeah, and I do too, so me and Bart got something in common. Imagine that.
So yeah, once again, thanks to Bart Palaszewski, Consummate Gentleman, Bartimus7 on Twitter. Thanks to our partners, MMA at Work, MMA at Mental, MMA Playground, giving us shout-outs. Definitely listen to them. And if you are listeners of them who came over here to listen to us, thank you very much. And, the biggest thanks really is going out to our listeners. I was blown away by the amount of support we got. I mean, I had to purchase bandwidth just a few days ago because we're getting so many downloads and so much support. I mean, the first episode, before I even put it up on iTunes, within 2 or 3 days had, I think, 150, 200 listeners, something like that, which for a debut episode, I understand we're slowly going to build up a following, but just really from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for tuning in and supporting us.
Till next time, we gone.
We gone. Peace, y'all.
No love you call